everybody, I'm George Kenner. What would ever make me think that I could build an epoxy slab table? Well, I went through a process and I kept seeing these tables on YouTube, and I thought, you know, I could probably do one of those, but I had some impediments in my way. And I started to think, you know, what would happen if you bought one of the slabs and it didn't work out? You went to do the epoxy fill portion and your epoxy failed. Well, those were some of the things that I worked with and I had problems with, and I didn't jump right on the opportunity. And then you know what happened? I made some cutting boards. I took them over to Tempe, Arizona, outside Phoenix, to my favorite woodworker store called Woodworker's Source. That's a mouthful. And I have been there many times. I took over some boards that I had already made and I had them milled. Well, I got there late in the day. Traffic was a little heavier than I thought it would be, and they couldn't finish the job, so I had to leave. But when I first walked in, I walked into the store, I saw this 10-foot long slab of padauk. Now, it was a beautiful red color like this, but on the outside, it had a white band. I actually didn't even know what the species of wood was, but it was beautiful. I asked curiously, how much is that? The response came back, and it was about $1,000, a little over $1,000. So I left. The next day, I walked back in, I saw this same slab. Now, I was driving a small four-door car, and I had absolutely no way to get this home. But I sure liked it. And I thought to myself, it was so pretty that even if you took from the center of where the epoxy would have to be placed in this slab, that it would make a tremendous set of cutting boards. It was almost worth buying it and having it cut up, but that seemed like a real shame. Well, I was on my way home, and it seems every now and then as though my father, who's passed away, it's as though he's not really gone. I was driving down the road and I was thinking of my friends and how I was going to finish up these cutting boards and give them to him, and all of a sudden the thought came into my mind that he was a woodworker and he built this beautiful table that's been our family table for 30 years. And I thought, that's my table when my mom passes away. It's gonna, you know, that'll become my family keepsake and it'll be mine. Well, I thought, you know, maybe my brother and sister would be a little upset that I'd want to grab that table. Well, it felt like my dad was in the car. He slapped me in the back of the head and he says, make your own table. I got home. I got directly on the phone with Woodcrafters Source and I bought the piece of wood. One of my friends took me back to Phoenix about a week later, 10 days later, and we picked up the slab and brought it back home. Now, the first thing that I had to do was take off about this section. This is almost 3 feet off of the slab. Then I set about doing those things that were necessary, filling or creating bridges or pools to pour the epoxy into. Now, this was already a very flat slab. It had a little bit of inconsistency towards the end in height that I was going to have to adjust at one end up here. But I could pretty much pour it, sand it, cut it, and I would have a flat tabletop. Well, I started about the process. Everything that I needed, I got from Woodworker Source. Not a problem. They had the epoxy. They gave me all the advice. Even the finish that I end up using on the table, which is called Odie's oil, I got from them. So as I set about in the process, it took me a matter of a couple of months, partially because I travel, and the other was I had some problems getting some things that I needed. The C channel, I had ordered that off of Amazon. They sent it to me. They didn't send me enough of the C channels. Then they sent it to me too big. It was just a nightmare trying to get that taken care of. I ended up buying the C channel off of Etsy, and of course, I'll put links to everything that I had in my Amazon store so you can go see everything that I use in my shop. including the Odie's oil. I got that off of, no, I bought that at Woodcrafter Source. That's where they had that. Iron legs that I also got off of Etsy, and they came in out of Canada, in fact, and they were there were others that were close to being the same thing, but were a lot more expensive. Even still, in the build of this table, by the time everything was done, transporting it home, all of my gas, the sandpaper, I had to buy another saw. I didn't have to, but I did. A Festool track saw to get the nicest, smoothest cut off of the edge of the table. Some of the sanding discs and things like that that I use to maintain the live edge, I have probably about $3,000 in this table. I absolutely love it. It is the type of thing that you see in multi-million-dollar homes sitting in my little home. And I did it. Again, what I did was I justified what I could do with the wood if it didn't turn out. That made the expenditure for the slab much easier to deal with. I did it right in my 2-car garage. It did take me a little time, and I did take advantage of the hot summer, letting the epoxy cure and the table set up. It is going to be in Arizona. I wanted it to acclimate to the weather to make sure that I had a really good epoxy bond. I strengthened the table with C-channels. It was really very easy to do. I have a CNC, Stepcraft M1000 CNC and an Eon Mira 7 Pro. I didn't have to have these things, but those tools did make it a little bit easier. This is one of the router guides for the C-channel that I used. I also can cut acrylic, and I made the corner radiuses so that I would get absolutely the same radius out of every one of the corners that I did. I was even able to cut a depth jig and centering jig out of acrylic with my laser. Came out fantastic. It was a great idea. Somebody commented in a previous video I did, you spend $10,000 for a laser to make a $1 tool to build a table. Well, I didn't really have to have this. I've seen people like Blacktail Studios absolutely freehand this, but I felt like, you know, I have the tools available to make this. It was really very easy to do, so I cranked it out. I would like to encourage everyone, get away from the TV. Do something. Think of what you could do with something like this slab. I did end up with this extra piece, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Down in the comments, tell me, should I sell it, thinking that it's worth, that the slab was about $1,500 by the time transport and epoxy and sanding. I took this back and had it surfaced because it would fit through the belt sander at Woodcrafter Source. So this is all perfectly ready to go. What would you do with this? I'm fearful that if I tried to make something else in the house, it would overpower the house. The table is a nice feature, but too much of the same thing, it just doesn't go good in decorating. Anyhow, if you can think of what I should do with this, maybe I should even send it to you. Put it down in the comments. I wish everybody the best. Go do something. Make something. I have somebody that just contacted me and wanted to be able to come into my shop and have me walk them through the process of making a cutting board. I think I'm going to do that. Why not? It's kind of like having industrial arts when you're retired. Go to industrial arts class. Why not? Have a good day, everybody.